You are listening to Fictional Radio Broadcast, live reports from fictional events. This broadcast is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. What follows is a dramatized scenario.
If you are hearing this on AM 1720, do not go to the bank in the morning. Do not drive to the ATM. Do not open your banking app unless you are prepared to see a number that no longer means anything. You are listening to Fictional Radio Broadcast, and tonight the world did not lose money. It lost the agreement that made money real. My name is Daniel Hale. I was not scheduled to be in this chair tonight. I was supposed to be home by 10. I had my coat on. I had already crossed the parking lot. I could see the streetlight at the end of the access road, and I remember thinking the night looked ordinary enough to trust. Then my phone rang. The overnight host had not arrived. The morning host was stuck on the other side of Hartwell County. 2 gas stations along the bypass had stopped selling fuel. The station manager said the phones were lighting up with reports that sounded like bank errors, but not exactly like bank errors. So I came back inside. I am speaking to you now from Studio B on AM 1720. The tower light is visible through the north window. It is blinking red every 4 seconds. The generator is on standby. The building has power. The phones are unstable but working. Our engineer, Ray, is downstairs checking the transmitter room. Pat is screening calls in the outer office with 2 yellow legal pads, 3 dead pens, and the calmest face I have ever seen on a person who has answered 100 frightened calls in less than an hour. Here is how we are going to handle this broadcast. I will tell you when something has been confirmed. I will tell you when something is under review. I will tell you when something is only one person's account and nothing more. I will not ask you to panic. I will not tell you to travel unless emergency management tells us to say that. I will not pretend we know more than we know. And I will try to keep the careful version of the story separate from the frightening version, because tonight those 2 versions are not the same. I also want to tell you one personal thing at the top, because later tonight I may ask you to trust this voice more than I am comfortable being trusted. I have one daughter. She is 8 years old. She is at home with my sister. Before I came back into this building, I sent her a picture of the streetlight outside the station. She likes streetlights. She says they look like little suns people built, because the real one goes away at night. She sent back a voice message. I have not played it yet. I am telling you that because there is a difference between a voice that sounds calm and a person who is calm. I will keep my voice steady. That does not mean I am not afraid. Let us begin with what we know. It is 8:30 p.m. on Monday evening. The temperature outside the station is 51 degrees, expected to drop to 48 by midnight. Wind is light out of the northwest. The sky is clear over most of Hartwell County. There is no active storm warning. Visibility is normal on the bypass, the Orchard Vale Connector, Route 19, and the Old Quarry Road. That was supposed to be the news tonight. A cold front, a school board meeting on Wednesday, a benefit dinner at the Bracken Mill Firehouse on Saturday, a missing gray and white dog named Pepper on Larkspur Bend, with a small reward posted by the family. I have that folder open on the desk in front of me. I am going to leave it open because before this night is over, I think we may need to remember what an ordinary Monday sounded like. The first unusual call came in at 7:52 p.m. A woman in Hartwell County said her debit card had failed twice at a gas station. The purchase was for $41 in fuel and a bottle of water. The attendant ran the card through a second terminal. Same result, declined. She drove home, opened her banking app, and saw a balance she did not recognize. Not zero, not empty, just wrong. The account number was hers. The name was hers. The last few transactions appeared to be hers, but the balance was not a number she could connect to her life. We did not put that call on the air. One declined card is not news. The second call came at 8:04 p.m. from a grocery store in Bracken Mill. Same kind of failure, different bank. The third came in at 8:11 p.m. The fourth at 8:14 p.m. By 8:20 p.m., Pat stopped writing full notes and began making a tally. By 8:25 p.m., the tally was 19. 19 people, different banks, different towns, same kind of wrongness. That is when the station manager called me back. At that point, the careful version of the story was still simple. A payment processor outage, a banking glitch, a regional display problem. Something small enough to have a name by morning. At 8:41 p.m., the National Payment Coordination Office issued a short written statement through its public affairs desk. I am going to read it carefully. The office says it is aware of intermittent reports of transaction failures affecting retail point-of-sale terminals in several states. Agencies are coordinating with member institutions to identify the source of the disruption. There is no indication at this time of a coordinated cyber event. Consumers experiencing declined transactions are advised to contact their financial institution during normal business hours. That is the statement. I want you to notice three things. The word intermittent, the phrase several states, the instruction to wait until morning. Hold those three things in your mind, because over the next hour, each of them is going to fail. At 8:55 p.m., Pat stepped into the booth between songs and placed a paper in front of me. Pat has worked in this building for 19 years. She has answered calls during floods, blizzards, election nights, missing child alerts, tornado warnings, and the night the old chemical plant burned for 6 hours. She does not get rattled. On the paper were 7 bank names. Beside each bank name was a number: 12, 17, 22, 31, 36, 40, 43. Those were separate callers, to this station alone, reporting that their balances had changed. Not vanished, changed. Some said their accounts were lower than they should be. Some said higher. Some said the number had digits where digits should not be. One caller from Tallow Creek said her checking account showed $1 and a string of letters where the cents should have been. Pat wrote the letters down. They did not spell anything. That detail matters. A hack steals money. A system failure freezes money. A bad update misreports money. But this was not behaving like theft, a freeze, or a normal display error. The numbers themselves were becoming unreliable. At 9:02 p.m., a senior spokesperson from one of the larger banks used the word glitch during an interview on another station. He used it twice. He said the situation appeared to be a temporary display glitch affecting a small number of accounts. He said customer funds were safe. He said there was no need to come to a branch. He said the issue would be resolved before the opening of business Tuesday. I will be honest with you. When I heard that clip through the monitor in this booth, I felt better for about 90 seconds. That is the power of a calm person using the word glitch on the radio. It is a good word. It suggests a small problem. It suggests a technician. It suggests a server room. It suggests that somewhere before sunrise, someone will restart a machine and the world will come back. At 9:04 p.m., 2 minutes after that interview ended, the same bank's mobile application stopped responding for users across the eastern half of this state. Not slow, not error message, not under maintenance. White screen. At 9:06 p.m., the bank's website began showing a maintenance notice. The notice was dated 3 days from now. We called the bank's media line. We were placed on hold. The hold music was the bank's own jingle, looped, and after 4 minutes the jingle began playing at a slightly wrong speed. Pat hung up. At 9:11 p.m., fuel stations in Larkspur Bend, Quarry Row, and North Haversham began reporting payment terminal approvals with totals of $0 and 0 cents. Not declined, approved, 0. The pumps measured gallons correctly. They tracked pump number, time, fuel grade, and volume. But the price field stayed blank or returned zero. At one station, the attendant tried to enter a manual cash price. The number disappeared before he could press confirm. At another, a printed receipt showed the time, pump number, gallons, and station address. The total line was empty. At 9:17 p.m., the Federal Payment Processing System entered what officials call a hold state. A hold state is not a shutdown, it is a pause. It can happen during maintenance or abnormal reconciliation. Usually, it lasts minutes. Tonight, it has not ended. The careful version of the story is that multiple financial systems are failing at once on a Monday night, and that by morning, a team of tired engineers will find the corrupted layer. The frightening version is the one I am not ready to say out loud yet, but I think you can hear it forming. At 9:28 p.m., the first physical cash report came from a hardware store in Quarry Row. The owner had stayed late doing inventory. He opened the cash drawer the way he does every Monday night. The day's cash sales had been written by hand on a slip of paper. $472.16. That was the recorded total. He counted the drawer. $608. He counted again. 608. He checked the deposit pouch in the back office. The pouch was supposed to contain $1,840 from the previous week. It contained $2,112. He did not report a theft. He reported the opposite. There was more money than there should have been. At 9:34 p.m., a woman in Haversham Ridge reported the opposite. She keeps an envelope of cash in a kitchen drawer for her mother's medication. $300, counted twice on Sunday. Tonight, the envelope contained $240. She lives alone. At 9:38 p.m., a bartender in Larkspur Bend reported that his tip jar had $38 at the start of the shift. It had not been touched. At closing, it had $71. These are individual accounts. They are not all independently verified. But the category matters. Because if physical cash is also wrong, then the problem is not only inside banking databases. The bills in a drawer are not an app. The envelope in a kitchen is not a server. A tip jar is not connected to a clearing network. A bill is paper, ink, serial number, watermark. A piece of agreement you can hold, and tonight, even that agreement may be moving. At 9:44 p.m., the Treasury statement changed. The new version no longer described the issue as intermittent. It used the phrase, significant disruption. It used the phrase, currency verification systems. It advised customers not to use ATMs. It advised banks not to open normal branch services until further review. That means the first statement has failed. This is no longer several states. This is no longer morning business. This is no longer glitch. At 9:51 p.m., 3 grocery stores in the listening area closed their front doors. Not because they were out of food, because nobody at the register could decide what a sale meant. A manager in Orchardvale reported that customers were calm until a woman tried to buy baby formula, and the card reader printed an approved receipt for $0. The customer said if the receipt was approved, she should be allowed to leave. The cashier said the store could not release inventory for nothing. A man behind her offered cash. The cashier opened the drawer. The bills were still bills, but the denomination numbers had begun to fade from the corners. The cashier stared at a bill and asked out loud what it was. No one answered at first. That silence did more damage than shouting, because every person in that line understood the same thing at the same time. A $20 bill is not a $20 bill because the paper says so. It is a $20 bill because everyone in the line agrees to behave as if it is. When the agreement pauses, the paper becomes a question. At 9:56 p.m., Orchardvale police advised essential retailers to limit entry and avoid disputes over price. At 9:59 p.m., the county emergency supply desk asked pharmacies, fuel stations, food warehouses, and hospitals to preserve stock records manually. They used the phrase, preserve stock records, not preserve sales records. That is a small change. A sales record asks what something was worth. A stock record asks what still exists. Tonight, officials have begun caring less about value and more about existence. That is a colder kind of inventory. It is 10:03 p.m. The phones have not stopped ringing in 31 minutes. Pat called 2 additional volunteers from home. One made it into the building. The other called from his driveway and said his car would start, but the gas station on his corner had closed, and the station 2 miles east had 14 cars waiting outside with no posted price for fuel. He decided to walk back inside his house. I want to talk about a pattern. Patterns are what turn a list of strange incidents into a single event. As of 10 p.m., this station has logged 382 calls, messages, or forwarded reports related to account values, cash discrepancies, fuel pricing, or retail transaction failures. 382 reports do not mean 382 confirmed emergencies. They mean 382 data points. And there is one detail that appears again and again. When people are asked what their account balance should be, they hesitate. Not because they are careless, not because they are bad with numbers. A contractor in Orchard Vale said he deposited a check on Friday for $9,400. He had the carbon copy. He knew that amount. His account tonight showed $16,211. He said it was wrong. Pat asked what the correct balance should be. He started to answer, then stopped, then said the balance should be more than that, then less. Then he said the numbers would not stay still in his head. That phrase has now appeared in several reports. The numbers will not stay still. Again, the cautious explanation is stress. Most people cannot name their account balance to the dollar. A frightened person, asked to do arithmetic over the phone during a financial emergency, may struggle. That is human, but the consistency of the hesitation is not normal. People know the number on the screen is wrong, the way they know a stranger is not their brother. But when asked to name the right number begins to blur. At 10:06 p.m., a grocery manager in Orchard Vale attempted a simple test. He wrote a price under a loaf of bread on a piece of cardboard. $2. The ink stayed for 6 seconds. Then the number thinned. Then it faded. The cardboard remained. The word bread remained. The line under the word remained. The value disappeared. He tried again with a marker. Same result. He wrote 1 loaf for 1 hour of shelf stocking. That stayed. He wrote 1 loaf for 1 repaired freezer motor. That stayed. He wrote 1 loaf for $3. The number faded. The event does not appear to remove quantity. It does not remove language. It removes monetary comparison. That is the first real clue. Money is not simply disappearing. The world is refusing to hold price. At 10:13 p.m., we received a statement from Dr. Miriam Calder, a professor of monetary economics at Meridian University. She has studied crisis markets, barter economies, wartime rationing, prison exchange systems, and the behavior of people when official money stops functioning. Her statement says money is not simply wealth. It is a shared language for comparing unlike things. It allows a loaf of bread, an hour of labor, a gallon of fuel, a medical procedure, and a month of rent to enter the same conversation. If that language disappears suddenly, society does not become equal. It becomes unable to compare need, effort, scarcity, and trust quickly enough to function. That is the clearest explanation we have so far. Money is a language, and tonight, that language is failing. This is why the first hour has felt so strange. The problem is not only that people cannot pay, It is that people cannot agree what payment would mean. At 10:17 p.m., a farm supply store in Bracken Mill began accepting trades, not cash, not cards, trades. A man offered to repair the owner's generator in exchange for 2 propane tanks. The owner accepted. Another person offered a wedding ring for 1 tank. The owner refused. The crowd became angry. The ring was valuable yesterday. Tonight the ring could not become heat. A paper bill could not become fuel. A bank balance could not become baby formula. Only usefulness survived the first hour. And usefulness is not gentle. At 10:20 p.m., a pharmacy in Clearwater faced a line of people waiting for medication. The payment system was down. The copay fields were blank. The pharmacist tried to tell a customer how much insulin cost. According to a county dispatcher, she stopped mid-sentence. She tried again, stopped again, then told the dispatcher later that the number would not stay in her mouth. She could say dosage. She could say expiration date. She could say storage temperature. She could say call your doctor. She could not say the price. This moves the event beyond systems and paper. If accurate, it means monetary value is not only disappearing from screens, it is disappearing from speech. At 10:26 p.m., Hartwell Memorial Hospital issued an internal advisory that was later forwarded to emergency management. The advisory instructed staff not to discuss billing, insurance, copays, or outstanding account balances with patients. It also instructed intake nurses to document identity, medical need, treatment urgency, medication requirements, and next of kin, no payment status, no insurance class, no balance, no estimate. In an ordinary crisis, that would sound humane. Tonight, it sounds like triage moving into the space where commerce used to stand. A man arrived at Hartwell Memorial with chest pain at 10:31 p.m. His wife tried to hand over an insurance card. The intake nurse reportedly said they did not need it. The wife began crying. Not because care was being denied, because for 28 years she had believed the card was the thing that opened the door. When the nurse waved it away, she did not feel relief. She felt as if the floor had moved. That is the strange emotional shape of tonight. People are not only losing money, they are losing the rituals that told them how to ask for help. At 10:34 p.m., a private ambulance company contacted county dispatch and requested fuel allocation guidance. Their cards were not working. Their cash was unreadable. Their contracted fuel provider would not release fuel without authorization. A dispatcher told them to proceed to the county depot. The depot asked what authority the dispatcher had to assign fuel. The dispatcher answered that ambulances were emergency vehicles. The depot asked whether the fuel was county-owned, privately held, or commercially reserved. The dispatcher did not have an answer. That exchange lasted 6 minutes. During those 6 minutes, 2 ambulances sat with engines off to preserve fuel. One was transporting a dialysis patient. Again, no one in this chain was necessarily cruel. The dispatcher was trying. The depot was trying. The ambulance crew was trying. But when money disappeared, all the small agreements that were hiding under money began asking to be named. Who owns the fuel? Who needs the fuel? Who decides need? Who enforces the decision? Who accepts the loss? Those questions are older than banks. Tonight, they are back. It is 10:43 p.m. We need to pause here, because the story has changed. The hardware store owner from Quarry Row called us back. We asked him to photograph the drawer, the deposit slip, and the bills. He did. Those photographs were reviewed by 2 people here at the station and forwarded to county emergency management. We cannot verify the entire chain from this booth, but we can verify that the handwritten totals exist. We can verify that the currency exists, and we can verify that the numbers do not match. The owner then performed another test while Pat remained on the line. He placed one $20 bill on the counter beneath a desk lamp. He said it looked normal: serial number, portrait, security strip, watermark. He turned away to read the serial number from another bill. When he turned back, the denomination in the corner of the first bill had faded. The portrait remained. The paper remained. The security strip remained. The serial number remained, but the number was gone. He checked the second bill. Same. A $20 bill without the 20. A $10 bill without the 10. A $5 bill without the 5. Cotton and linen. Ink and security. A national symbol with the value removed. This is the moment the banking explanation fails. A banking failure lives in accounts. A cyber attack lives in networks. A display glitch lives on screens. This is a bill under a lamp in a hardware store after closing. This is not the bank losing track of your money. This is money losing track of itself. I am going to tell you something personal, and then we will continue. When I came back to the station tonight, I texted my sister and asked her to take the cash envelope from the desk drawer in my apartment and put it in the freezer behind the ice. I do not know why I chose the freezer. I do not think the freezer protects anything. I think I asked her to do it because I needed, for 1 minute, to feel as if I had done something useful for my daughter before I sat down in this chair. A lot of you are going to feel that urge tonight, to move something, count something, hide something, check something, do something with your hands, because the thing you trusted in your head has become uncertain. I am not going to tell you to run to a bank. I am not going to tell you to run to a store. I am going to tell you to take inventory calmly. Water, food, medicine, batteries, fuel, blankets, people. Those are the things tonight that have not changed their numbers. At 10:52 p.m., the Emergency Supply Authority issued a non-monetary priority advisory. The advisory did not contain prices. It contained order, immediate life safety, water, medical care, food, heat and refrigeration, shelter, transport, personal property claims. The intention was simple. If money cannot decide who gets what, then emergency priority must decide. For 12 minutes, the advisory appeared to help. A shelter in Orchard Vale used it to settle a dispute over generator fuel. A clinic in Clearwater used it to protect refrigerated insulin. A church kitchen in Bracken Mill used it to distribute food by household need, rather than crowd pressure. Then something went wrong, not with the paper, not with the broadcast archive, not with the online version, with the people hearing it. At 11:04 p.m., we read the advisory on AM 1720. The sentence was, "Medical care should not be refused for lack of payment." That is what appeared in the written advisory. That is what I read. That is what our station archive recorded. But within 8 minutes, we received 43 listener reports saying they heard different versions of that sentence. A pharmacy owner reported hearing that medical care should be exchanged for medicine. A retired doctor reported hearing that medical care should be exchanged for food. A man waiting near a fuel depot reported hearing that medical care should be exchanged for fuel. A mother sheltering with 3 children reported hearing that medical care should be given first to children. A private guard outside a warehouse reported hearing that medical care should be given first to those who can protect supply. These listeners were tuned to the same frequency, the same minute, the same sentence. We pulled the archive. The archive did not change. My script did not change. The written advisory did not change. But people heard the version their fear needed most. This is the second major shift tonight. The first shift was from bank failure to money failure. The second shift is from money failure to agreement failure. If people cannot agree what a dollar means, society can improvise. If people cannot agree what medicine means, or fairness means, or priority means, or need means, society cannot even begin the conversation. Dr. Calder warned that money is a language. We may now be hearing the next stage, not silence, translation failure. Every listener receiving the same sentence in a private dialect of need, a private dialect of hunger, a private dialect of fear. At 11:16 p.m., the Office of Civil Continuity issued colder guidance. It says residents should avoid forming private exchange lines in uncontrolled locations. Critical resources must not be assigned value through crowd pressure, threat, or improvised personal claims. Public agencies are attempting to establish temporary priority rules. No all clear has been issued. That is the first time tonight the phrase "no all clear" has appeared, and it is also the first time officials have admitted the danger may not be what people lack. It may be what people believe they deserve. At 11:23 p.m., several communities began doing what people always imagine they will do if money disappears. They began bartering: food for fuel, medicine for labor, blankets for batteries, generator repair for propane, transport for canned goods. At first, this sounded hopeful. It sounded old-fashioned. It sounded almost clean. Then the failures began. A woman at a shelter offered a gold bracelet for a bottle of antibiotics. The volunteer refused because the shelter did not need a bracelet. A mechanic offered 2 hours of work for insulin for his father. The clinic accepted, but then could not decide whether the same mechanic should be required to work before or after receiving the insulin. A family offered a television for food. No one wanted the television. A man with 3 cases of bottled water offered 1 case in exchange for security at his house. A firefighter told him security could not be privately purchased during emergency allocation. The man said purchase was not the word anymore. He said it was trade. The firefighter had no answer. This is why barter does not save a large society by itself. Barter works when needs match. It works when 2 people each have something the other wants, at the same time, in the same place, with enough trust to complete the exchange. That is rare. A surgeon cannot perform an emergency operation in exchange for 20 jars of pickles. A fuel truck driver cannot accept 500 small promises of future yard work. A hospital cannot run on jewelry, televisions, chickens, and apology notes. Money did more than represent greed. Money compressed complexity. It let a nurse work tonight and buy food next week from someone she had never met. It let a farmer sell grain in one county and repair a tractor in another. It let labor become future bread. It let strangers cooperate without knowing each other's stories. Tonight, that compression is gone. Every transaction has become personal. Every personal transaction has become moral. Every moral transaction has become a conflict waiting for a witness. It is 11:31 p.m. The shape of this night has changed again. At 10:38 p.m., the British Banking Authority instructed customers to remain home and avoid payment cards until further notice. At 10:41 p.m., European cross-border transfers were suspended. At 10:49 p.m., India halted a major consumer payment network during the morning commute. At 10:56 p.m., the Tokyo market did not open normally. A wire reporter standing inside the building said the screens were on, the staff were present, and the price boards displayed a single phrase equivalent to system in evaluation. 2 hours ago, we were a region with a banking problem. 1 hour ago, we were a country with a money problem. Now we are one country among many, and others are reporting the same thing in their own languages. A wire report from France included a line we have been unable to stop reading. Across several markets, merchants are reporting that the cash in their registers does not match the cash they remember placing there, and the discrepancies do not balance against each other. That final part matters. Do not balance against each other. If money were simply being stolen, the missing amounts would appear somewhere. If money were simply being created, the extra amounts would gather somewhere. But according to the report, Some registers have more, some have less. The difference does not sum to zero. It does not sum to anything. Dr. Calder called again at 11:29 p.m. Earlier she said this was a failure of agreement. Now she says that may be too gentle. Agreements can be renegotiated. What we may be watching, she said, is the agreement forgetting itself. Then she went quiet. She said she would call back after speaking with colleagues. She has not called back. At 11:42 p.m., Pat made a list of things still working. The lights in this building are on. The power grid is mostly stable. Water is running. Hospitals are open. Emergency dispatch is functioning. Phones are mostly working. The internet is up, though pages involving prices, markets, exchange rates, invoices, and balances are failing. Television stations are broadcasting, but several cable channels have stopped airing commercials. That only happens during large stories. This station is still on air. The transmitter north of town has not faulted once. Ray, our engineer, says the equipment is the calmest thing in his life right now. That is the list of what still works. The list of what does not work is shorter. Card payments, bank transfers, ATM networks, currency verification, consumer banking apps, price fields, debt balances, monetary speech, shared agreement, and now power is moving, not money, power. A hedge fund manager cannot trade a vanished portfolio for fuel. A banker cannot lend numbers that no longer hold. A landlord can still lock a door. A farmer can still close a gate. A warehouse owner can still refuse a truck. A mechanic can still repair an engine. A nurse can still keep someone breathing. This distinction is reshaping neighborhoods. In Bracken Mill, an apartment complex created a shared kitchen in the lobby. Residents chose a retired cafeteria manager to coordinate meals. The building owner objected and said he controlled the common area. The residents asked what he could contribute. He held up ownership documents. The documents were real. The ownership may still be legally real. But in that lobby, at that moment, the people chose the woman who could feed 100 people with 3 working burners. That is the peaceful version. There are worse ones. At a fuel depot outside Tallow Creek, private guards blocked county ambulance access until written allocation authority could be shown. The guards said their contract required them to protect stored fuel. The ambulance crew said human life came first. Both sides believed they were following a rule. Both sides believed the other side was stealing. The standoff ended only when a depot engineer opened a secondary access valve and moved emergency fuel manually. No shots were fired, but county officials now classify the depot as a critical tension site, not a crime scene, not a protest, a place where society has not yet decided what matters first. At 11:52 p.m., we received a statement from a former systems engineer who worked in national payment processing for more than 2 decades. He asked not to be named. He said the electronic systems that handle modern money are not one system, they are layers. Some built decades ago, some built last year, some written in languages few people still know. New systems sit on older systems. Patches sit on patches. Corrections sit on corrections. He said it is possible that an inconsistency in an old layer had been corrected by newer layers for days or weeks before those corrections failed tonight. That would explain strange balances. It would explain payment holds. It would explain app failures. It would explain settlement breakdowns. I asked whether it explained the cash, the bills in the hardware store, the envelope in the kitchen drawer, the tip jar, the denominations fading under a lamp. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said no. His theory explained screens. It did not explain paper. It did not explain speech. It did not explain why one person heard medical care should be exchanged for fuel, while another heard medical care should be given first to children. He said if those reports are accurate, then the payment system is not the cause. It is only the first place we noticed the wound. That sentence stayed with me. The first place we noticed the wound, not the place where it began. At 12:01 a.m., the Office of Civil Continuity recommended that communities form temporary 5-role councils: medical, food, water, mechanical, protection. Officials are avoiding the word leader. That may be intentional, because in a moneyless vacuum, the first person called leader becomes either a target or a king. The guidance says each decision should be written down, read aloud, and repeated by 3 witnesses: a room, a list, a witness, a promise. A consequence: civilization is old. The tools underneath it are older than banks. At 12:09 a.m., we received the first piece of hopeful news. A payment went through. One grocery store in a town near the eastern seaboard processed a card transaction at 12:05 a.m. The card was accepted. The receipt printed. The amount was $46.11. The store manager called the district supervisor. The district supervisor called corporate. Corporate called the bank. The bank confirmed that the transaction had cleared. For 4 minutes, that was the best news of the night. Then the bank called back. The same transaction had also cleared in 19 other stores, for 19 other customers, at the same second, with the same receipt number. Those stores were closed. Those customers were at home. No one had bought anything. The bank tried to delete the 19 false records. All 20 disappeared, including the one that had actually happened. The customer's account showed no purchase. The store's account showed no sale. The receipt in the customer's hand still existed, but the amount had faded from the paper. A bank engineer described it as a piece of paper with ink on it. A piece of paper with ink on it. That is almost exactly how the hardware store owner described the $20 bill after the denomination vanished. They do not know each other. They were not describing the same object, but they were describing the same failure. A symbol after the agreement leaves it. Paper, ink, no value. This was the first false recovery, and it may be worse than no recovery at all, because a system that stays dead is frightening. A system that briefly works, multiplies the result, erases the real event, and then pretends nothing happened is something colder. It means tomorrow morning may not bring a clean return. It may bring corrections that erase the wrong things. It may bring partial numbers, ghost transactions, receipts for purchases no one made, debt returning without ownership, ownership returning without price, price returning without trust. That possibility is now part of the official review. At 12:18 a.m., the emergency communications desk sent us a note that changed the station's role in this event. Areas receiving a clean AM 1720 signal are reporting fewer violent exchange disputes than areas reporting static, dropouts, or signal shadow. That does not mean the broadcast is preventing collapse. Correlation is not cause, but the pattern is strong enough that officials have asked us to repeat priority language slowly and consistently. Not prices, not payment terms. Priority language. Life before ownership. Water before comfort. Medicine before debt. Food before status. Fuel before convenience. Shelter before property claims. Work without coercion. Protection without tribute. No person owns the only well. No person locks the only medicine. No person turns a generator into a throne. Those are not laws. They are sentences. Tonight, sentences may be the only bridge left. We want to remind listeners that you are tuned to fictional radio broadcast, continuing to monitor this developing situation. At 12:24 a.m., a school gym shelter in Clearwater asked us to repeat the line, "No person owns the only well." They had a dispute over bottled water stored in a coach's office. After the phrase was played twice, the person holding the key opened the door. According to a volunteer, He said he did not remember why he had been refusing. At 12:29 a.m., a shelter coordinator in Orchard Vale reported that when the priority language was played over a loudspeaker, the room settled for approximately 11 minutes. After 11 minutes, arguments returned. When the message was replayed, the room settled again. This does not make the broadcast a cure. It suggests repetition may help hold agreement in place. A fragile shared rhythm, a temporary public memory. Silence does not help. In silence, private value returns. At 12:37 a.m., a report came from a place no one expected. A school cafeteria in Clearwater is sheltering 68 people, including 21 children. Adults were arguing over food portions. The printed priority list was on the wall. People still disagreed. Then the children formed their own exchange at a lunch table, not with money, not with ration cards, with tasks. One child offered to read to younger children in exchange for an extra blanket for his grandmother. Another offered to carry water cups in exchange for batteries for his brother's inhaler device. A third offered crackers but refused several trades because, according to the volunteer, the other children did not need crackers as much as someone else needed them. The volunteer said the children were not fair in an economic sense. They were fair in a human sense. They asked who needed what first, then what each person could do, then who could wait, need, ability, wait. Those three words settled the table better than the printed advisory. We are not romanticizing this. Children should not have to invent civilization in a cafeteria during an emergency. But the report matters because it shows the event is not unbeatable. Agreement can still form. It just does not form automatically. It must be spoken, witnessed, repeated, protected. At 12:43 a.m., the phrase need, ability, wait was added to the emergency communications loop. 3 words. No price, no balance, no debt, no profit. The simplest economy in the room. Maybe the oldest. At 12:51 a.m., Ray entered the booth without knocking. He has never done that in all the years I have worked with him. He told me the regional monitoring office had called to confirm whether the signal leaving our transmitter matched the signal arriving 40 miles east. I asked what that meant. He said the broadcast leaving our tower and the broadcast being received in the neighboring county were not identical. The difference was small. It could be atmospheric interference. It could be normal AM drift on a cold night. It could be nothing. Then I asked what the difference was. He said the receiving station reported a second voice under mine. Not louder, not clear, a slight overlay, a quieter voice reading numbers. He said the numbers were not the numbers I was reading on air. They did not match prices. They did not match account balances. They did not match timestamps. When engineers attempted to record the overlay, the recording contained only my voice. The numbers were audible only in real time, only in the live signal. I am going to ask listeners on the eastern edge of our coverage area not to call us to confirm this tonight. Write down what you hear. Note the time. Keep the radio on, but do not flood the phone lines. I do not know whether confirmation would help. I do not know whether denial would help. For the first time tonight, the broadcast itself has been described as not being what it should be. Ray is returning to the transmitter room. Pat is calling her husband. The station manager is in the parking lot. I am going to stay in this chair. Because if this signal is helping even one shelter remember the same rule for 11 minutes at a time, then 11 minutes is worth protecting. It is 1:04 a.m. The official count of countries issuing some form of public statement is now 41. The count of countries suspending some part of banking operation is 36. The count of countries advising citizens to remain home is 12. The global financial system is not closed in the ordinary sense. It is meaningless in the immediate sense. A market cannot open if nothing can be priced. A bank cannot lend if value will not attach. A store cannot sell if sale is only a word with no number behind it. The International Exchange Coordination Forum has issued a statement saying institutions are preserving ownership records, account identities, asset registries, and legal documentation where possible. The absence of displayed monetary value should not be interpreted as cancellation of lawful claims. That final sentence is important. They are saying the disappearance of money does not erase ownership. But the public may not accept that. If you own a warehouse full of rice and the town is hungry, what does ownership mean? If you own an empty mansion and 10 families are freezing outside, what does ownership mean? If you own medicine and the patient cannot pay because payment no longer exists, what does ownership mean? These are not abstract philosophy questions tonight. They are being asked at doors, at counters, at gates, at hospital intake desks, at kitchen tables, at the back of trucks, and the answers are not the same everywhere. That is why officials are afraid, not because money is gone, because 1,000 local worlds are being born before anyone can write a constitution for them. Outside this building, the road is almost silent. On a normal Monday night, one car passes every minute or two. Between 12:40 and 1 a.m., Pat stood by the window with a watch. She counted 3 vehicles, 2 police cruisers, 1 pickup truck moving north below the speed limit. People have gone home. They are counting what they have. They are checking who is inside the house. They are learning the size of their world without money. For some, that world is a room. For some, a street. For some, a shelter. For some, a locked gate. At 1:27 a.m., we received a call from a woman who said she worked inside a Federal Intelligence Coordination Office. We cannot verify her identity. I am telling you that clearly. She said she could not stay on the line long. She said she was calling because she had been listening, because she had a daughter, and because she thought my voice sounded tired. Then she told me a question had been asked in a secure room in Washington. Not an answer, a question. If the records are wrong, and the cash is wrong, and the verification systems are wrong, and people cannot hold the same value sentence in their minds, then what would it look like if money had simply stopped existing? She said the room had gone quiet. Then someone said it would look like this. No one argued. Again, this is not verified. A question in a room is not the same as a fact in the world. But sitting here at 1:36 a.m., I think the expert explanations have done what expert explanations do in stories like this. They almost worked, then failed. The payment layer theory explained screens. It failed at cash. The cyber attack theory explained apps. It failed at handwritten prices. The panic theory explained confusion. It failed at identical sentences being heard differently. The market failure theory explained prices. It failed at a child's board game money losing its numbers in a classroom with no network connection. That report came in 12 minutes ago from North Haversham Elementary. A custodian cleaning an after-school room found play money on a table. The words play money remained. The cartoon graphics remained. The colored paper remained. The numbers were gone. A board game has no bank, no account, no debt, no market, and still, value would not stay printed on it. At 1:41 a.m., the Office of Civil Continuity issued what may be the most important guidance of the night. Communities are advised to establish shared priority rules immediately. Rules should be simple, visible, repeated, and witnessed. Do not attempt to recreate monetary pricing at this time. Do not assign private exchange values to critical survival goods. Stabilize trust before attempting commerce. Stabilize trust before attempting commerce. That is the closest thing to an answer we have, but it is not enough. Trust is slow. Hunger is fast. Fear is faster. At 1:49 a.m., Ray returned from the transmitter room with a strip of paper from the monitoring printer. The printer is old. It records signal interruptions, carrier strength, transmitter temperature, and emergency tone verification. It does not print transcripts of speech. Tonight at 1:44 a.m., it printed a line of numbers, not signal strength, not frequency drift, not temperature. Numbers arranged in pairs. 4611, 4611, 4611, then 4610, 469, 468. You may recognize that first number. $46.11 was the amount of the false recovery transaction. The grocery purchase that cleared once, multiplied 19 times, then disappeared from the system. The monitoring printer has no reason to know that. It is not connected to the banking network. It is not connected to the station newsroom. It is connected to the transmitter. Ray says there are 3 possible explanations. 1. The printer malfunctioned. 2. Someone entered test data manually. 3. The live signal is carrying numerical information not present in the archived audio. He does not like the third explanation. I do not like it either. At 1:53 a.m., the Eastern listening station reported that the overlay under my voice had changed. Earlier, the second voice was reading numbers. Now it is counting down. Not steadily, not like a clock, more like a person trying to remember a price and losing 1 cent at a time. 4611, 4610, 469, 468, then silence, then another number. 317. That number has also appeared somewhere else. The clock in our transmitter room. The analog clock that has hung on the wall for years is now showing 317. Every other clock in the building shows 155. Ray took the transmitter room clock down, opened the back, checked the battery, and put it back on the wall. I asked why. He said if he removed it, he would feel worse. Ray is one of the most rational people I know. If Ray needs to sit with a clock for a while, that is what Ray should do. At 1:58 a.m., 2 vehicles arrived outside the East Service Gate. They appear to belong to a private fuel cooperative that formed earlier tonight, near Tallow Creek. They have not entered the building. They have not threatened staff. They are asking for access to our generator supply. Their argument is simple. Fuel should go to people, not a broadcast. Our counter-argument is also simple. Without the broadcast, several shelters may lose the repeated priority language that is helping them avoid conflict. Both arguments have weight. That is the horror of tonight. The wrong side is not always evil. Sometimes both sides are defending something real, and if the world cannot compare real things anymore, the comparison becomes a door with people pushing from both sides. At 2:06 a.m., someone slid a piece of paper under the service door. It had 1 sentence written on it. A voice is not warmer than a child. I read that sentence once and felt certain they were right. Then Pat handed me a message from the Clearwater shelter asking us to repeat the priority rules because fighting had started near the water table. A voice is not warmer than a child. No, but a voice may keep 10 rooms from deciding that warmth belongs only to whoever can take it. That is not a clean defense. It is not comforting. It is the best I have. At 2:11 a.m., County Emergency Management called to say a unit had reached the outer road but could not yet approach the gate. There are people standing between the road and the building, not a crowd. 8 or 9 people, some from the fuel cooperative, some from nearby houses. One is holding a child. I can see them now through the east window. They are not breaking in. They are not chanting. They are waiting. Somehow, that is worse. Because they are waiting for someone inside this building to decide what the transmitter is worth. At 2:19 a.m., I played my daughter's voice message. I did it during the break. I did not put it on air. She said the streetlight picture looked lonely. Then she asked if the little son outside my station had friends. That is all. Children ask questions before they know they are philosophy. Does the little sun have friends? I looked out at the tower light while the message played. Red blink, 4 seconds. Red blink, 4 seconds. Red blink. The tower does have friends tonight. Every radio in a kitchen, every battery unit in a shelter, every car receiver in a driveway, every old tabletop set in a dark bedroom, every person listening and repeating the same sentence, so the person beside them hears it too. Maybe that is what money was. Not the little sun, the agreement that all the little suns belong to the same night. I do not know. I am tired. You can probably hear that. The careful voice is still here. The person under it is getting closer to the microphone. It is 2:31 a.m. I want to talk to you directly now. Not to the wire desk. Not to the agencies. Not to the shelters. To you. If you are at home, do not begin by asking what your things are worth. Start by asking what the people near you need. Water, medicine, heat, food, light, transport, a locked door, a calm voice. Then ask what you can do. Cook, carry, repair, watch, drive, treat. Share information. Comfort a child. Write the list. Read the list. Witness the promise. Do not create a king because he owns the storage room. Do not create a prison because you are afraid of the hallway. Do not turn medicine into a throne. Do not turn water into a weapon. Do not turn protection into tribute. If someone says money will return by morning and everything will be normal, understand that they may be right about the first part and wrong about the second. Money may return. Numbers may return. Accounts may refill. Bills may regain their faces. Coins may remember their names. Markets may reopen. But the world has seen something tonight it cannot unsee. The thing we called value was never inside the paper. It was never inside the screen. It was never inside the bank. It was between us. Invisible. Fragile. Repeated so often we confused it for nature. A dollar worked because enough strangers agreed to behave as if it worked. A price worked because enough people accepted the comparison. A paycheck worked because a society promised that labor could become food later. A hospital bill worked because even a broken system believed life could be translated into cost. Tonight, that translation broke. And underneath it we found a harder question. What is a person worth when the number disappears? If your answer changes depending on whether that person is your child, your neighbor, a stranger, a prisoner, a rich man, a poor woman, someone who can work, or someone who cannot, then money was not the only problem. It was only hiding the argument. I told you earlier about my daughter. I told you she is 8. I told you I asked my sister to put the cash from my desk into the freezer. I want to tell you the truth about why I did that. I did not do it because I thought the freezer would protect the money. I did it because I needed, while driving back to this building, to be doing something for her. The money was the thing I had. The freezer was the place I thought of. A lot of you have done some version of that tonight. Counted something, moved something, checked on someone. You were not being foolish. You were looking for the things that still had edges. My father ran a hardware store for 31 years. There is a photograph of him on the desk beside me now. Behind him, in that picture, near the counter, there is a handwritten sign I had forgotten until tonight. It says, "If you need heat, ask. Not buy. Ask." I do not know if that is enough to build a civilization, but it is enough to start a line that does not become a riot. And maybe tonight that is the scale we are allowed to work at. Not saving the world, saving the next 10 minutes, then 10 more, then 10 more. At 2:43 a.m. the east gate opened, not from outside, from inside. The station manager went down with Ray and opened it halfway. They did not let anyone into the building. They spoke through the gate. I could not hear the whole conversation from the booth, but Pat wrote down what Ray told her afterward. The fuel cooperative wanted half the generator reserve. Ray said half the reserve would cut transmission time below 4 hours. The cooperative said 4 hours of radio was less important than a night of heat for children. Ray asked how many children. They said 5. Ray asked where. They gave an address. Ray asked whether the house had a working fireplace. They said yes, but no wood. Ray asked whether they needed generator fuel or wood. No one answered for several seconds. That is how distorted tonight has become. Fuel had become the word for warmth, but fuel was not the only path to warmth. Ray asked whether anyone in the group had an axe. One man did. The station manager pointed to the old storage shed behind the tower maintenance building. It is full of scrap wood from last year's studio renovation. They gave the group wood. Not fuel, wood, a smaller answer, a more exact answer. The child outside the gate will be warmer. The transmitter will stay on. That is not a victory. It is a lesson. When money disappears, every need has to be named more carefully. Not value, need, not price. Use, not possession. Purpose. At 2:51 a.m., the Office of Civil Continuity sent one final advisory before switching to hourly updates. It says public agencies should stop using value language in emergency instructions. Do not say valuable supplies. Say needed supplies. Do not say high-cost medication. Say critical medication. Do not say property loss. Say shelter loss. Do not say economic damage. Say food access, water access, heat access, medical access, transport access. The advisory says language may affect compliance. Language may affect memory. Language may affect whether a room can hold a shared rule long enough to act. This is not how official statements sounded at 8:41 p.m. At 8:41 p.m., they said intermittent. They said several states. They said morning business. Now they are telling people how to speak so the world does not split inside the sentence. The careful version of the story is gone. We are in the other version now, the one where money was only the first word to fail. It is 2:58 a.m. The vehicles outside the gate are still there, but the people are no longer at the door. They are loading scrap wood into the back of a pickup truck. A county unit has reached the outer road. Our generator remains active. The transmitter remains stable. The tower light is still blinking. We have received shelter confirmations from Orchard Vale, Clearwater, Bracken Mill, and North Haversham that repeated priority language continues to reduce conflict in short intervals. Short intervals matter. A civilization is not saved all at once. It is saved for 11 minutes, then 11 more, then 11 more. At 3 a.m., we are switching to interval transmission. Before we do, I am going to repeat the emergency priority language one final time in full. Life before ownership. Water before comfort. Medicine before debt. Food before status. Fuel before convenience. Shelter before property claims. Work without coercion. Protection without tribute. No person owns the only well. No person locks the only medicine. No person turns a generator into a throne. Need, ability, wait. Need, ability, wait. Need, ability, wait. If money returns before sunrise, remember what it failed to carry. If it does not return, remember what must be rebuilt first. Not banks, not markets, not prices. Trust. Pat just handed me one final note. The man from the hardware store called back. He counted the drawer again. He said the count was right this time. He does not know what that means. Neither do I. But I am going to choose to think it means something. The paper bills are still blank in several towns. The accounts are still unstable. The Eastern Monitoring Station still reports a second voice under our signal, but only sometimes now, and never on recording. The clock in the transmitter room still reads 3:17. My daughter is still asleep, according to my sister. The cash is still in the freezer. Maybe it will be worth something tomorrow. Maybe it will not. but she will be worth the same. That is where I am going to start. This has been Daniel Hale with Fictional Radio Broadcast, live reports from fictional events. No all clear has been issued. Stay where you are. Keep this dial. Talk to the person next to you before you talk to anyone else. Keep the signal alive.